Hi everyone, I hope you are all doing well. So today is all about midsummer trimming of my annuals, especially the calibrachoas that are in the baskets. So here's one of the 4 hanging baskets that I have of the calibrachoas that are in the back garden. The baskets, I think, were looking so much better, I would say about 2 weeks ago. And the reason why is because for the last 2 weeks, we've had so much rain and thunderstorms and showers and you name it, we've got it. And these calibrachoas have not been able to bloom fully. And for those of you that are experienced with calibrachoas, you'll know that they actually like a sort of wet and then some time in between to fully dry out the soil. And they actually love a lot of sun. So all that moisture and rain that we've been getting in between actually did not allow these to dry out properly, and therefore when they bloom they were kind of immediately die. And so you can kind of see that underneath all of this, you can kind of see that if when they were blooming, all of this was covered in blooms. But since all that rain that we've had, we've got a lot of dieback, and if I move all of this back, you'll see that underneath there's just a lot of dead growth here. Sorry, can you see that? Yeah. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to cut as much of the vines, or I guess branches, in the back, and then I'm going to cut the front layers off just about to the tip of the baskets. In addition to cutting these back, what I will also do is I will give each one of these baskets a handful or 2 of compost just to kind of top dress it, because you'll notice that there is not much soil left in the basket. So giving it a little bit of compost, and if you don't have compost, you can just go ahead and give it, a handful or 2 of potting mix, and that would work just as well. In addition to the top dressing with a little bit of compost, I will also be giving it a little bit more of the slow release fertilizer. And on top of the slow release fertilizer, I will also be giving it a little bit of water soluble fertilizer every 7 to 10 days or so. And for those of you that are curious and asking how I can get my hanging baskets to be full like this, it's when I actually bought it from the store in the spring, I add a handful of slow release fertilizer as well as top dress it with a little bit of potting mix or compost in the spring. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now as well. And also cutting it back to, the top of the basket. So here's another basket. I just want to show you what this one also looks as well, because it looks really pretty on the outside again. But if you pull all of this back, you can kind of see that there's just so much dead growth again. So I'm going to do the same thing with this basket as the other. But I know it looks kind of sad, and you're thinking that you're actually harming the plant, but by cutting it back, you're actually giving it new life. You're allowing the plant to grow new vines, or I guess new branches, and therefore the ability to form more blooms and look beautiful all the way until the end of the summer season. Here's the slow release fertilizer that I will be adding to the basket. Just in case you haven't seen one of my previous videos, this is the soluble fertilizer that I give each basket every 7 to 10 days or so. And here's the compost that I will be top dressing each of the basket. And again, you don't need this. If you have potting soil, you can do the same thing as well. But I like compost because it's more nutrient dense, and it also acts for me as mulch to help reduce a little bit of water loss on hot summer days. Oh, and just in case you're wondering, if you have the space, you can just go right in and start cutting away right while it's sort of hung up, which makes it, I think, a little bit easier to cut. But for me, it's so much harder to get in because I have all of these plants here. So it's going to be so difficult for me to get in. So I'm going to take the basket down onto the table and cut it down from there. So let me just set my camera up and go through all of that with you today. So this is how much I just cut off just one basket. There, this is the first basket. I did, like I said, cut everything in the back as much as I could, and I try to leave as much of the you know, the branches at the front as I could as well. And I think that looks really drastic, but trust me, in a week or two it's gonna look like it was before I pruned it. So I'm going to give it now some compost and slow release fertilizer. So there, that's one basket all completed. I pruned it back, trimmed it back, gave it a little bit of, or actually 4 shakes of the slow release fertilizer and about 4 cups of the compost on top. So I'm going to finish all the other containers and show them to you afterwards. So here are all the containers. There's this one. Notice that I actually water all of these in really well, even though we are expecting quite a bit of rain tonight. And the reason why I water these containers, even though we expect rain, is that because there's just so much foliage on the basket here that most of the rainwater gets kind of washed and run down the plants, so the actual soil doesn't get soaked up as much as the plants in the ground. So the amount of water that I give each basket is about 2 liters, but again, that kind of depends on how dry the basket or the soil in the baskets are. So another way to tell is just water each of the basket until you see water running out the bottom of the basket, and that's when you know that there's enough water in it to moisten the soil and hydrate the plants. And I water the baskets every 2 to 3 days, depending upon how warm the temperature is. If you look at some of the baskets, I did cut some of them back a little bit more, and the amount of cutback that I do, it just kind of depends on how much dieback that I have underneath all of the branches that you saw on the outside. So I think I'm going to stop the video here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all next time. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye for now.